Welcome to our fourth monthly call of our new UK Association of Trail Associations, Informal Trail Groups and Bike Parks, the UK MTB Trail Alliance. This month we're kicking things off with a presentation from Ali Hare from Trash Free Cambu, who will talk about how organising trail cleans and taking an environmental stewardship approach, they've been able to get landowner buy-in for their unsanctioned trails in Cambusbarron and Stirling. And once he's got you all fired up, Tom Laws from Trail Collective North Wales, also a Trash Free Trails A-teamer, we'll talk about Trash Free Trails Earth Day Spring Clean campaign, which is coming up in April, and how you can all get involved with a trail clean of your own. That's the idea, at least. After that, we'll open the floor for you all to ask questions of them both. So if you could use the little hands up icon at the bottom of the screen, so I know you want to speak, that would be great, and I'll call people in turn. And then also, when asking your questions, say who you are, which group you're from. And once we've all them out of questions, I'll open things up so you can all ask questions of each other and of me and what we're doing centrally to build the UK MTB Trail Alliance. Could I ask that you all leave your video on during the call so everyone can see each other? And also, if you get a chance, please change your display name to include the organisation you represent. So, for example, you can see mine is Robin Grant, UK MTB Trail Alliance. With that said, over to you, Ali.
Okay, thanks, Robin. I'll just do the usual thing and just start sharing my screen if I can. Okay, Robin, we all good? Can we see that?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Great to see you all. Thanks for having me along this evening. It seems like a bit of a Trash Free Trails takeover of this meeting, but hopefully you've got some good stuff to talk through. I guess just to start things off then, a quick introduction to myself. My name's Ali. I'm one of the co-founders of Trash Free Cambu, which is a community-based group in the central belt of Scotland. Now, as you can imagine from our name, our group name, we lean in pretty heavily on Trash Free Trails for our inspiration. And that also goes in hand with I'm one of the A-team, one of the ambassador team for Trash Free Trails. And I'm also the project lead for the TFT approved event sustainability scheme, which you may have seen pop up at the World Championships up at Glen Tresk and at Red Bull Hardline and other events like that. Now, my intention for tonight is to take you on a bit of a journey of the Trash Free Cambu story. And really, tonight is just to give you some food for thought. And that's it. That's all I really intend to do. I want you to take you on a journey from our little group's creation to where we find ourselves now in 2024. And at the crux of the whole thing, how we've leveraged and utilized trail cleans and environmental stewardship, and how that's been absolutely crucial in advocating for our trails and building relationships with our landowner and our local community. So let's get started. So where do we find ourselves this evening? Well, I want to take you to a small hill in the central belt of Scotland. This is not Bike Park, Wales. This is not Duffy, nor is it like Glen Tresk or the Golfy in the Tweed Valley. We're talking about Gillies Hill in Cambusbarron in Scotland, which is a smallish private woodland owned by a local development trust, and it covers some 350 acres with about 75 meters of elevation. However, despite its distinct lack of elevation, it's still an amazing little locale. So we have hidden amongst the woodland here a total maze of well-used multi-use paths, and should you know where to look, usually on Strava or Trail Forks, a range of mountain bike trails, all of which are unofficial and of varying degrees of severity. We have rooty technical trails, we have flowy, swoopy, single track, and most of them only last kind of roughly about a minute in length, or sometimes considerably less of that, in fact. Now, to really start the story of Trash Free Cambu, I want to take you back about 3 odd years. And like many community woodlands dotted across Scotland and the UK, mountain bike activity has always been in some degrees roughly tolerated, or mildly tolerated, I would say. There was never really any real acknowledgement of trails, only limited contact with the landowner, and the mountain bike community was often seen as being fairly isolated on its own, you know, sometimes described as being quite anarchistic. That was an actual quote from one of the trustees of the Development Trust once, and generally quite destructive to the woodland, to be honest. And tensions, as you can imagine with that, sometimes boiled over into Facebook posts, into the Facebook comment sections, and often the mountain bike community, as we found it, was the first to have the finger pointed at them for any wrongdoing that seemed to crop up in the woods, woodland-related misdemeanors, parking issues, or even some of the summer fires that cropped up every year, unbelievably so. But having said that, along around this time came something called the pandemic. And along with that, our little woodland saw an absolute explosion of mountain bike activity. Fantastic. It's great. So many people getting involved. But with that, what we found was that as trail usage skyrocketed, it shot up considerably. Cheeky builds were happening all over the shop. And alongside all of that came a massive increase in single-use pollution around our woodland, and particularly, unfortunately, at mountain bike hotspots as well, be that jump spots, the start, the trails, the ends, general congregation points. And so during one of the summer rides, which I can still remember actually in 2021, myself and one of my friends, Chris Farquhar, we hatched a bit of a scheme. And that scheme was to try and host a trail clean. And we really had two objectives with that trail clean. Firstly, we were rightfully pretty pissed off with the amount of trash that we were finding all over the trails, and we wanted to rid our wild places and trails of that single-use pollution. But secondly, we had a bit of a plan, and we thought that in doing this trail clean, we might be able to actually positively engage with the landowner, which is the Community Development Trust, and demonstrate that our mountain bike community can actually be a really powerful ally to the woodland, despite all the previous issues as I've described. So an ally to the woodland, an ally to the wider environment of Gillies Hill, and a wider ally to our local community and the people that live in Cambusbarron and Stirling. And so this led to our first ever trail clean. Now, at the conception of the idea of the trail clean, I will admit that we didn't actually have a clue who Trash Free Trails were at that point. But in looking for resources to support that trail clean, we ended up coming across the TFT DIO approach, the do-it-ourselves approach. And along with that kit and those resources that helped us, and with a few appropriately placed social media hashtags, we ended up being invaded on the day by a gaggle of the Trash Free Trails A team, who were, as you can quite imagine, more than happy to support us in our plans. And so what did we find at this first trail clean? Well, we spent 3 hours on the hill. We had about 25 people. We removed just over 30 bags of trash, so that equates to around 1,300 single pieces of single-use pollution, covered roughly about 30 kilometres of trail, found 2 bike frames, a full wheelie bin, and 1 traffic cone as well. And the really cool thing about this is that the event, as advertised and as we did, it came with the approval and support of the landowner and the local community, which was fantastic. And so, where have we been over the past 3 years at Trash Free Cambu? Well, we still hold regular trail cleans, and we work hand in glove with the landowner, the Development Trust, to host these events on the hill, and they're really supportive of it. We host seasonal trail cleans, which come in line with the Trash Free Trails' major highlights during the year. And we also do lower key, less advertised events on a pretty regular basis when we come across either hotspots where there's been camping and a lot of trash has been left behind, or at jump spots where you tend to find quicker build-ups. And what's come along with the effort that we've gone to there is we've managed to build up a little bit of a reputation too. We've become known with the landowners, with the development trust, on a pretty much a first name basis, and with the woodland management group who oversee the woodland as a whole. We know the community council as well. We're on first name basis with them as well. We have a really good relationship, and the community at large as well, who can see through our social media activity, through Instagram, Facebook, what a positive impact we're having on our environment, but also on our trails as well within the woodland. We've also picked up some local media coverage, and in 2022, as the picture there shows, we received the award for Community Project of the Year at the Developing Mountain Biking in Scotland Awards. Now, that's all well and good. But most importantly for us, what we've seen is a kind of a demonstrable reduction in the amount of single-use pollution that we're taking off the hill. So with most events, we now take away in the region of about 300 to 400 single pieces of trash. And yes, the goal is always zero, and we always almost want to be out of a job. But from that high of about 1,300 odd pieces on our first clean to being at that kind of 300 level each time, that's something that we're immensely proud of what we've managed to achieve there. Now, going along with that, and something that I should passively mention, is the interconnectivity, which seems to have naturally grown as a result of these trail cleans. So we've seen more connections get forged between woodland user groups through the trail cleans, and even just within disparate mountain bike groups within Stirling itself. So our events are regularly attended by a diverse mix of individuals, with mountain bikers, orienteers, the Stirling University Cycle Club, local families, and even just interested in individuals joining in. We've even hosted bespoke nature connection events for our local scouts and Cubs groups. Now, I mention that because there's a real benefit here with what we're doing. And that's all about promoting environmental stewardship to as many people as we possibly can. And allied to that, what goes along with that, it's all about relationship building. So the more people that we know as a group within Trash Free Cambu, and the more positivity we can put out, and the better light that we can shine on our mountain bike community, which in turn means better relations with our landowner and a more receptive group of trustees when it comes to future trail developments, future plans. So for us then, using these trail cleans really has turned out to be a bit of a keystone for creating a more positive relationship with our community and our landowner. And it's been absolutely key to how we plan to develop mountain biking on our little hill going forward. Now, I realise that all sounds very kind of anecdotal. It's very qualitative. It's all about better outcomes for our woodland, better outcomes for our environment, and for better outcomes for our trails. But what we've also found is that comes with some quantitative benefits at the same time. So we've seen a reduction in single-use pollutants, and we have the data that goes along with that. But through those trail cleans and the relationships that we've been able to establish, we've been able to access external funding applications. So we've been able to access £1,000 worth of wind farm funding for trail clean tools, which was co-sponsored by our community council. And we've also managed to get a £500 grant for dig day tools, which was co-sponsored by our landowner, the Community Development Trust. So as you can see, the point I'm trying to get at there is that all these little positive, meaningful acts, the trail cleans, the fairly constant engagement, social media, the really trying hard to build those connections has added up to what we feel is quite a really big net gain, not only for our trails and for our community, but also for the environment and woodland within Cambusbarron. So where are we now in 2024? What do we have planned going ahead? Well, the main development for our group is that not only do we host trail cleans, we now also host dig days, which for us is kind of that next natural step in how we develop mountain biking on the hill. And in essence, we're essentially acting as a trail association in mostly everything but name. We're not called a trail association. And we've also, by working hand in glove with the landowner, we've been able to avoid some of the duplication of the governance and the bureaucracy that might go alongside that formal trail association name. So what we're essentially doing is acting to the side of the development trust, and with their blessing and with their support through all the engagement that we did, rather than as a completely separate entity. And this relationship that we managed to establish, it works both ways. So where the development trust provides us with tools or access to grant funding, they give us storage, they give us access to the hill with vehicles if we need it. They even provide us with first aid kits. We can in turn give them a huge number of really highly engaged volunteers who not only help through trail cleans and dig days to help maintain mountain bike trails and look after the woodland through environmental stewardship, but also help look after things like the wider core path network. We also have members of our group that now attend the woodland management group for the development trust, so that we can ensure that mountain biking as a sport has a voice on decisions in the woodland, and we can contribute effectively to other projects. So it's very much a kind of a quid quo pro, which has been built up over time. Lastly, we've also managed to diversify the events that we undertake on the hill, with 2023 being the pilot for a new event that we created here called what we call PDR, which is Pick, Dig and Ride. And what this event seeks to try and do is it builds very much on that Trash Free Trails DIO, the do-it-ourselves ethos and approach. So you have everything in your head and your heart and your hands to do good things in your own environment. And what it seeks to do is combine both trail cleans and dig days and take a very much a holistic approach to trail advocacy. And what I mean by that, and I'll break that down a bit, is for us, trail advocacy comes from two different angles. So it absolutely means spades in the ground. And that's kind of the viewpoint of trail advocacy. So maintaining and building sustainable trails built well and with sympathy to your surroundings and for other users. But we think there's another really important element within that, which is about environmental stewardship and environmental advocacy at the same time. So caring for your wild places that your bike takes you to. In our eyes, this kind of idea of pick, dig and ride seeks to address both those in one hit. So you get your sustainable trail angle, you get your environmental stewardship angle, and you provide an event and a place where people can invest in both of those things in their wild places, make positive changes, remove single-use pollution, and ride their bikes, if they so choose, all in one afternoon. It is a big event, but it seems to work well and go down with people. And you know, we've talked to other trail associations about this idea as well, and it seems like a bit of a no-brainer. So you're on the hill for your dig day, why not do a trail clean when you come back down the hill on your way back? And you're combining both those sides. You're leaving a positive trace on your environment, and you really are fostering a tangible sense of environmental stewardship within the guys that are up on the hill with you, and with your mountain bike community as well. So it's a really an effective way to do things. So the takeaway of everything I've said tonight, and I know I've talked at length about everything we've been doing. Has it been easy for us? It sounds straightforward, and no, it's not been fully easy for us. Building those relationships has taken time. It's taken effort, and of real importance, I feel, is there needs to be a bit of a willingness to bend and work with the bureaucracy and the systems which already exist. That could be with your landowners or otherwise. Now, some of us want to rail against that system. And I absolutely get that. But in our case, what we found is that by providing that little bit of slack to work with what you might maybe initially see as quite annoying or overly officious processes can net you quite really brilliant results. It just takes a bit of time, and it takes a bit of patience to go along with it. So I guess to finish then, what am I really advocating for this evening? What's the point, Ali? Why have you been talking for 15 minutes about all this stuff? Well, I think it's that in every mountain bike community, so be you a big operator, a trail association, or even a small unconstituted local group like we were, find that positive act which, before you even think about putting a spade in the ground or more spades in the ground, or asking to put up a trail signage to say this is our trail which we built, or seeking permission to build, a graded trail, find that positive act which builds you currency and builds a positive perception with your landowner and your local community. Now, that could be a range of things. But for us, for Trash Free Cambu, that was and still is to this day, it's doing trail cleans. So we see trail cleans as an absolute mega keystone of a positive act, which can have a huge benefit for the perception of your mountain bike community, whoever you are. But most importantly, it also has huge benefits for the trails and wild places which your bikes take you to every single time you go for a ride. So I'm going to come to a close now, but I hope that within that story, as a place that you can find your own positive act in what I've talked about, and go out and try and seek to leave a positive trace, build those connections, build the connections and relationships that you need. And with all that being said, and I think prior to doing questions, I think I can smoothly segue straight over to Tom from Trash Free Trails, who is going to give some more information on the Earth Day Spring Clean campaign and how you can get involved. Tom, I'm your clicker now. Tell me when to click and I'll click.
Next slide, please, Ali. I take great delight in saying that all evening. Thanks for that, Ali. That was ace. I really enjoy hearing the story of Trash Free Cambu and how it's you've gone from litter picking into accidentally becoming a trail association. So I'm Tom. I'm part of Trail Collective North Wales. I'm on the committee for those guys putting together some of the media and more public facing side of stuff. But I'm also an A-teamer for Trash Free Trails, and have been pretty much since the inception. I also find myself as the campaign manager for an environmental NGO called Save Our Rivers, who campaign against physical modifications to rivers, things like weirs, hydro schemes, that sort of thing. And because I'm terrible at saying no to things, I'm also a science teacher. So pretty busy, but I find all of those things are interconnected and tied together, really. So it keeps me busy, but it also, there's a lot of overlap in the things I'm doing. Next slide, please, Ali. So I was just reflecting on this photo as we were putting the slides together earlier. This is a photo from Halloween, hence some of the slightly odd costumes. And this is our local little spot called Breichmelon. And I would say 10% of the people in that photo have ever or will ever ride the trails in that wood. And yet all of those people came out relatively short notice to get involved in a trail clean in the woods, across some of the dog walking paths that are there, down to the river where some of them enjoy swimming over the when it's a bit warmer. Some of them enjoy swimming when it's colder as well, but that's their lookout. But it also backs onto people's houses, and our woods where we choose to ride our bikes and to build our trails is also very much part of the community, and represented there is a real broad snapshot of the community of Bethesda, not just mountain bikers. So all these people who have a connection to the woods, to the trails, to the place in the first place. And I think it's important to note that the kind of key trash hotspots, if you like, in that wood are very little to do with riders. They're also very little to do with dog walkers, to be honest. There are a couple of lay-bys near the bottom. There's a kind of turning circle, which occasionally gets used for parties and things. So the kind of the hotspots, if you like, aren't linked to mountain bikers. But we thought it was really important that the community saw that mountain bikers who choose to enjoy that wild place are also, as Ali said before, environmental stewards and kind of custodians of that little piece of nature. And so on Halloween we came together, we sounded the horn, if you like, and the community answered and came out. And we had a really broad spectrum of people. You can see there are really young children there, plenty of dogs. There's even a Tory MP lurking in there somewhere, but everyone's got their faults. And we had a fantastic day. We removed an entire pickup truck's worth of trash from our local wood, and made a real positive impact on the local community, particularly some of the community who are perhaps more reluctantly accepting of mountain biking in the woods. And this is also one of the areas that Trail Collective North Wales are putting forward in our project plan to Natural Resources Wales, as an area of woodland where we would like to manage some of the trails that are going on there. We're super lucky to have a land manager who's very accepting, very tolerant, and prepared for events like this to happen relatively straightforwardly. And I think we've demonstrated that responsibility that we want to be custodians of this area, and hopefully that will, as Trail Collective North Wales's project plan drags its way through the NRW approval process, that will help to kind of grease those wheels. So I wanted to throw out an opportunity and kind of maybe a starting point for some of you guys and your trail associations, your wild places, your woods, your communities. Next slide, please, Ali. Which is that on the 22nd of April, it's Earth Day. Now, I appreciate every day of the year is a day these days, but Earth Day is pretty close to our hearts at Trash Free Trails, and it's an opportunity to kind of take a positive action around your wild place. So we're calling on all of you guys to take part in an Earth Day spring trail clean around about the 22nd of April. Next slide, please, Ali. Now, last year, we had 55 trail cleans. We had nearly 700 volunteers, nearly 500 volunteer hours donated, and thousands of items collected. You might have seen some of the events that took place around Llanberis, both around Climperdarn and all the way to the summit of the Wyddfa, but also more broadly across a few trails across the rest of the UK. Now, what we'd really like is for more trail associations to take a lead on hosting an Earth Day spring clean. And in particular, kind of using that as an opportunity, as Ali said, to demonstrate that ability to want to look after those places. So the format is very much up to you guys and very much up to how you want to do it. I really like the PDR format that Ali and Trash Free Cambu have coined, but I appreciate that doesn't fit for everyone. Equally, I really like when Trail Collective North Wales went out the other day. We did our first sort of soft dig day with high vis and that sort of thing beyond just the digging that had been occurring anyway. But spontaneously, a trail clean happened around the car park on the way back. What we'd like, though, is that as part of the sort of Trash Free Trails ethos, that it's not just a case of removing that single-use pollution, but it's capturing a snapshot of what's there. So there are resources on the Trash Free Trails website to help you catalogue the things that are found, and also to then record and document them. Now, obviously, if you do an Earth Day spring clean this year, and then you do one next year, if you've recorded that data, you can call upon it and you can make comparisons. You know, the figures that Ali was referring to before about the reduction in single-use pollution that they've seen, that's all logged through the Trash Free Trails system and something that's called the State of Our Trails report. So if that's something that's piqued your interest, next slide, please, then definitely get in touch with Trash Free Trails. You may already know who your kind of local A-team members are, in which case reach out to them, get in touch. But if you're not sure, drop either Rich at Trash Free Trails an email, ask myself or Ali, or Trash Free Trails on Instagram as well. And hopefully we can get a real broad, diverse range of Earth Day events happening in a couple of months' time. Thanks very much.
Awesome. Thanks very much, guys. That was really, really good. Has anyone got any questions? Put your press the little yellow hands up icons if you do. Meanwhile, I will start with a question for Ali. So, Ali, you talked about how many different groups of people you had along to all your events. How do you advertise them? You know, how do you get all those different groups along?
So I could give you an answer that just says we think it's Instagram, or we actually surveyed the people that came along to one of our recent trail cleans. It was from the Pick, Dig and Ride event, actually, because we were so keen on the idea that we actually evaluated it after we did it. So we sent out a questionnaire to all the participants that came along to that to say, how did you find the event? Would you come along to another one? Was it too long? But also, where did you hear about us? And the majority of people that we have that come along, we thought it was Instagram. So we have an okay-ish following on Instagram, but it actually turns out it was Facebook. Facebook was where the majority of people were getting their information and the invites to these events, and where there was most exposure for Trash Free Cambu.
Okay, and that was just via your own Trash Free Cambu account, rather than in different groups for dog walkers or horse riders, etc.
Yeah, we use a couple of local groups. So again, we use the Community Development Trust's own group, so we cross-post a lot. We have our own Facebook page for Trash Free Cambu, and then we just go on a bit of a cross-posting mission before the events happen. And we are also fairly regular as well. We explain what the events are about, we talk them through, we do videos and we post them up before the event so people know what to expect. We update on things like the weather as well. It's continual communication seems to boost engagement with the events that we found.
Okay, cool. Everyone is still thinking of their brilliant questions, so I will ask another. And going back to your relationship with the landowner, I mean, can you just sort of take us through, I suppose, a timeline for X number of years ago and what their attitude to the trails were before you started doing the trail cleans, and then how long it's taken you to get to where you are today and what their attitude is now? And I suppose how exactly how the trail cleans influenced them. Did they find out, did you practically tell them? Did they find out slowly over time through word of mouth, etc., etc.?
Yeah, so roughly the time period you're looking at about 3 years since, as I described, those kind of initial feelings of there's maybe a bit of negativity towards the mountain bike community to where we are now in 2024. So it has been long thought, and a lot of that has been proactive engagement on our part as well. We wanted to show that there was the willingness from the mountain bike community to do things differently and to act differently and to be positive in the community as well. So a lot of that engagement was very much proactive from our side. So we went to the Development Trust and said, look, we want to do this, but we're not going to do it without your support. without your blessing. We want you on board with this as well. And we purposely did the trail cleans before we did any sort of managed dig days to slowly just feel out that relationship with them. And that's developed to the point where they will now come to us as well as contacts within our community. Trash Free Cambu, as I say, has become that face of the Cambusbarron mountain bike community. So as I say, it's essentially acting like a trail association in all things but name. And the landowners will come to us, say, if they have concerns around a wild blind step down that's been built on a main core path, which we had recently. They'll come to us and go, look, guys, what do you think about this? And we'll be able to help advise them on that sort of thing. So it does work both ways. We had a really interesting example a month or so back. So Cambusbarron has been really badly affected by P. ramorum larch disease. And actually the majority of the woodland within the past year was actually clear felled. So as part of that, you can expect huge disruption to the trail network, as you can imagine. And it was actually the Trash Free Cambu group that led a lot of the regeneration of those trails on the hill. So we went from having very few trails in action after the clear felling. You know, we're talking like machine track ruts, which are up to your waist style, to having all our trails back up and running now. And it was the Trash Free Cambu group that led that maintenance. But recently they've been replanting, or they have plans for replanting that woodland. And a consultation day was held on the hill so that people could see where trees would be replanted and what the sectors would be and that sort of thing. There were 2 members of the local community, non-mountain bikers, and the rest of people that turned up for that consultation day were mountain bikers. So we're now a huge part of that community. We're a very active face, and we have very active volunteers who are willing not just to get involved with the mountain biking side. I'm there to turn up because I want to go and shred some jumps afterwards. They're there because they care about their wild places. They care about their woodlands. And that's why I'm saying that utilising that idea of a trail clean is so keen to building up a sense of community, but a really strong sense of environmental stewardship at the same time. And that carries you through a long way into other things where people will actively be engaged in their environment and their woodland and will want to contribute proactively to things that aren't just cool mountain bikey things to do. They'll want to get involved in wider things, which has a huge benefit for everybody.
Cool. James, you have a question?
Just out of interest, Ali, who have you as a landowner? Because locally, most of the trails are on NRW land, which is government owned. The sort of forestry organisation for Wales. I don't want to say that it's well, no, it has been difficult with what the Trail Collective has been doing. But are you with private landowners, or is it a similar situation of government-owned business?
So for us, it's private land ownership. So it's a community development trust that own our land. So it was bought by the community around 5 years ago, I think, for us. So it is a slightly different situation. But I think what I should emphasize is the benefits that we've seen probably go into government-owned forestry locales at the same time. So I think although the situation is slightly different, the end outcomes or the outputs or the benefits that you have through the approach that we've taken, you could easily see that going across into other areas. Because as I say, it's about building community engagement. It's about improving perceptions as well. And hopefully from that, if you can say, we're doing good things, you know, we've got our heads screwed on, we know what we're doing, that helps build those perceptions, especially when you're working with things like local government or with other government bodies, for sure.
Cool. not seeing any other hands just yet, but
I think
I'll ask...
Ralph has got his hand up, I think.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, suddenly. Go, Ralph.
Hi all, lovely to meet you all. It's been a really interesting meeting this evening, so thanks for that. I'm Ralph. I'm from a new organisation, Hurtwood. We're studying urban forestry and floriculture, and trying to find a harmonisation between the objectives of urban forestry and recreation. So it's very similar to sort of thing you've been doing up in Scotland now. A couple of questions, I guess. Firstly, what happens with all the stuff you collect? I don't know, it's just a sort of passing thought. And secondly, you throw around the word environmental stewardship a lot, which is brilliant. And I was just wondering if there's been any sort of, I don't know, inquisitions from landowners with regards to woodland management objectives and sort of chucking in some like invasive weed control, for example. And I say that because one of your photos had rhododendron, which down in the south is very invasive, so obviously it requires a lot of control. So I was wondering if you had any, I don't know, questions from landowners asking if you guys were getting involved.
I'll do the first if you do the second, Ali.
Yeah, go for it, Tom. Yeah.
I mean, one of the most successful things we've done was we got the local mountaineering centre, so Brennan, got involved. They bought a pickup with them. And then they have access to their industrial recycling that they pay for anyway. So they took the whole lot away, and it went from there. When we've organised river cleans and things in the past, we've reached out to the local council and agreed a spot where we will pile recycling and non-recyclable stuff. But unfortunately, at times, it does fall on someone to drive a disgusting van to the local dump. So part of the kind of trash free trails methodology involves laying out as much as you can of what you've found, and that's quite a good time to then sort it, so you know you're dealing with bags of plastic bottles, that sort of thing. Certainly in the early days of running events, people were volunteering their own domestic recycling to get rid of some of this stuff. As things get bigger and bigger, clearly that doesn't become as good an option. So kind of reaching out to local councils, people who have access to some sort of industrial recycling, and being prepared for a really stinky van,
or in my case a very stinky car. I think is what it comes down to. We've done a similar thing, Ralph, where through the development trust we have connections with the local council now. So just as Tom says, everything we collect on trail cleans is sorted so that we can count it up for the Trash Free Trails State of Our Trails report. So everything we collected goes into data, and that's put into the machine, and that becomes part of a UK-wide picture of the state of our trails and the amount of single-use pollutants that are out there. Now, during that sorting process, we inevitably get into recyclables, and through our contacts at the local council, we're able to bag them up. And they actually come up to our trail clean site and they pick it up directly from there and take it away with them. On the second point, the environmental stewardship, and it's a really good point. And the rhododendron one is great, actually, because at the moment there is a huge process on Gillies Hill of eradication of rhododendron. And it's ongoing and has been ongoing for about over a year now. Trash Free Cambu are one group of volunteers on our hill. There are other volunteers from the Community Development Trust that all have their own projects. So, for instance, one's called the Lily Pond Project, which is about clearing a pond area on the hill of all the invasive rhododendron that's there. What we've been able to do, as I described, is through our trail cleans, we've been able to engage an additional set of volunteers who are now willing to help out with that, and who now turn up not just to dig mountain bike trails or not just to do trail cleans because they get to go riding afterwards, but they'll come along to help clear rhododendrons, contribute to the walled garden projects. So there's a proper community-wide benefit there. It's not just mountain bikers doing things for mountain biking. That's part of it, but it's much wider than that as well.
Very cool. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Cool. I'm not seeing any hands. So I'll, Tom, going back to the Earth Day Spring Clean. So, I mean, just talk us through the sort of, the bare minimum logistics of organising your own trail clean. I mean, how much effort are we talking here?
It's really as much or as little effort as you want it to be, really. Essentially, you need to round up a few core friends, check they're all available on a particular day, say that weekend, and then it's a case of just a social media post or two to get the ball rolling, and then you just sort of need to think through how the day is going to run. Is it going to be obvious where people can go when they turn up? Have you got something to put the rubbish in? Have you got somewhere for the trash to go at the end? Have you got a bit of an end of day plan? But all of these things are covered on the Trash Free Trails website. As Ali alluded to, there's a DIO, do it ourselves section where it basically asks you a series of questions. Are you organising this trail clean for just you and your mates? Is it a little bit wider? Is it a big public event? And it talks you through each of those. So there's a little process map that talks you through each of those, provides some sort of sample risk assessments and that sort of thing, if it's going to be a bigger, wider event, and hopefully give some examples of how things can work. So essentially it's as little or as much work as you'd like it to be, really, and not much beyond a little bit of social media work to promote it, and just a little bit of careful thought, and rallying a few key mates. But if you're thinking of running an event and you're not quite sure, reach out to someone like me, to Ali, to Dom, who's lurking here somewhere. Thanks for the link, Ali. And we'll happily talk you through any bit that you're not quite sure about. Because if you essentially, I would say go relatively small and go gently and see how you get on, and grow it. Don't try and do anything too big too soon. And Trash Free Trails can also provide any of the sort of promotional stuff that you might need. There's obviously graphics for the Earth Day spring cleans, and sort of more generic stuff as well as a really nice pack of cards that we can kind of lend to people to help you sort that trash afterwards. And I'm not going to steal the thunder from some stuff that Trash Free Trails are launching in a month or two's time, but there will be places that you can kind of access all that stuff physically, hopefully all over the country.
Okay, cool. And then actually, and if people want, you'll also be able to advertise everyone's spring cleans on the Earth Day Spring Clean website, I presume.
Yeah, absolutely. So anything that you're organising, get in touch with us, particularly through Trash Free Trails, and Trash Free Trails will then push that out to our audience as well, and kind of push that sort of ecosystem approach to looking after the wild places where we play.
Cool. So out of interest, just to everyone in the audience, who has who's already done a trail clean of your own so far? Anyone want to just talk about briefly their experiences of doing it? Go on, Jez.
Hi, I'm Jez, SingletrAction. We pretty much we don't record it, to be fair, which is something I've just been looking up on my phone. But every dig day, we take a bin bag, pick up whatever is lying around. So I do it at Stainburn once a month, and we do it at Dolby every month, walking the whole length of the trail, picking up everything we can. And I even do it in the local woods near me. And the one thing I have found is, if we keep on top of it, the volume is absolutely tiny. So in the car park at Stainburn last week, 2 weeks ago, I got 2 plastic bottles, and that was it. The car park was clean. Whereas in the past, where we used to just rock up, go and do a dig day, never really thought about it, oh, there's a bit of trash over there, and left it, you could get half a bin bag full. And even to the point now, the car park is, especially in the summer, is used as a campsite unofficial, because it's a Forest Commission land. I've even found after the campers have gone, they've left trash, but they've bagged it up because the place is clean. It's quite interesting that just putting that effort in, making the place look tidy, tends to keep it tidy.
Yeah, I totally agree. And what you've said is probably a story that people echo across people's experiences. But how amazing would it be if you had that hard data of every week or every month you've been out from each of those spots? You could track, and then you go from being an anecdote to being a piece of, closer to scientific data. There is so little data on the impacts of terrestrial litter, terrestrial trash, on wild places, on woods, that sort of thing. So kind of what we're encouraging people is, lots of people are already doing a trail clean, probably not even realizing it. People just go out and as you're digging, take that Lucozade bottle with me. If you record that data as well, we start to build up that body of evidence as to what's being left, and we can start to pick apart why it is and go all the way back. We're not just going to go, these guys are scumbags, they've just ditched it here. We need to work through, well, they must have some connection to that place because they've come there in the first place to enjoy it, most likely. Why have they left that trash there? So there's a story to be told, and I think it's important that we try and capture and record that. So Ace, that you've looked that up on the Trash Free Trails website, Jez, and look forward to those contributions coming in.
Ooh,
Yeah, that will definitely be the plan from now on. Every time I pick something up, I'm going to record it on the Trash Free Trails website, wherever it is.
Ace.
I mean, the other thing to point out, Jez, as well is, if you're only advertising as dig days, perhaps you should start advertising as dig days and trail cleans. Mostly so you get the kudos of doing the trail cleans from the landowner's perspective, so that they know you're doing that as well as the dig days, which they probably don't realise at the moment.
Yeah, well, they probably do, because I get on well with the guys at Forest Commission. So, we and I know, funnily enough, Will at Dolby actually was taking pictures of the trash on Sunday. So he maybe has recorded it. I'll have to check with him whether he does. But certainly other times we definitely haven't, and I will be doing more to do that.
Cool. Paul, you had your hand up, but you've taken it down again, but I'm going to pick on you anyway.
Me, Paul, was it, sorry?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I'm from Northampton Bike Park, just in case you can't tell. We do a trash walk every week. I mean, we're quite a small site, it's only 40 acres, which sounds a lot, but in fact it's not. So we do a trash trail every week, and it's around about half a bags, but we're not recording it, we're just doing it. It's kind of a natural thing now. So do we need to record that, or would you like us to record it? I mean...
Trash Free Trails would love it. We want your data. We want you guys to become citizen scientists, essentially. There's various different levels that you can record it. So there's various Google forms, depending on how much time and detail you want to go into, from individual counts of the type and brand of what's found. Thank you, Joe, for putting the link in the comments.
Is that the one that's just pinged up? Yeah,
the one that's just popped up. But you can also literally just do a quick one page. I found this many items, and the most prevalent thing was this in this postcode, that sort of thing. So whatever you've got time for. But again, as a bike park, it's got to be interesting to think, the only people who are going to be there are bikers. What's getting left? Why is it getting left? How can we change that? But yeah, yes, please, in essence. I've got a question, that Joe's unmuted herself, and she's going to say something pertinent or possibly rude. It's hard to say. Those of you who at the moment aren't potentially doing trail cleans or don't feel you're doing trail cleans, why not? What are the barriers? What can Trash Free Trails do to help you guys do that, or to feel like you're doing it? Because you probably are already.
Well, Mike, you've got your hand up. Do you want to go first?
Well, I'm not doing it because James is one of your A team, and he's doing it.
Perfect answer. I'll let you have that one, Mike.
Anyone else?
I feel as though, sort of, if you put a bit of competition in on it, and sort of say everybody has an account. There's a Trash Free Trails website, and over the course of the year, sort of there's like not quite rewards or anything, but everybody tallies up the rubbish they've picked, and then there's like this person has picked the most, and then like an impressive figure to go along with it. And I think that would drag a lot of people into sort of between mates having competitions as to who can do the best at it across the course of a year, and sort of probably some friendly waivers go along with it and that sort of thing. And I think that would help get a lot of people sort of not only doing it, but and making an effort towards it, but also recording it and putting it into the Trash Free Trails data.
There's actually a really good example of that, James, that we've been doing at events recently, which is gamification of picking up trash, which is the rubbish raffle. And what we do at events, we've done it at Hardline and at Glentress World Championships, is kids absolutely love it. Is we say, right, go out onto the event site, find some trash, bring it back, and you'll get a raffle ticket. And at the end of the day, come back to us, and we'll do a raffle. And there's some really great prizes. We had, I think it was Hattie Harden's Trash Free Trails helmet. It's like a one-off custom painted helmet. We've had other prizes from partners from Endura and others to give away. And that kind of gamification element, specifically at events, is super effective. We found it to be really effective in engaging people in the act of doing that. And particularly, I mentioned the Glentress World Championships event. So that was a five-day international event. So it was competition all the time. There was spectators on site. Over the course of that 5-day event, we picked up just over 1,500 pieces of single-use pollution. And there were anecdotal comments from people walking about the site, from teams, from riders, from spectators, saying it's unbelievably clean. And I mean, I myself walked around the event site and there was barely any trash at all. And that's because people were engaged in that process with us. Now, they did actually use our event sustainability scheme. Trash Free Trails were on site as well. We were right at the entrance. If you were there at World Champs, you may have seen us. You probably did, because you pretty much had to walk through our gazebo to get to the entrance. But that element of gamification was front and center there, and it worked wonders. So that's a really good point. Thanks for that.
Just about engagement, I'm always getting the younger generation engaged. So if you have any like kids biking groups, get them to do like a quick trash mob. And there's loads of there's loads of stuff again on the Trash Free Trails website to get those young people involved, because if you can get the young people growing up not seeing like single-use pollution on their trails in their areas, they won't drop it, because it will be their norm to not see everything being thrown around. And that's the only way we're going to start breaking this cycle, is that if we get through to our younger generation, who are ultimately going to make the change and have those trails in the future.
Well, yeah, it speaks to Jez's point about the car parks, doesn't it? If people are seeing a very clean pace, they're much more circumspect, or some of them at least are much more circumspect about littering it if it is clean, rather than full of litter already. Bern, I'm just going to call on you. What's your experience of doing cleans, and how's that affected your relationship with your local council, who your trails are on?
We kind of tackle it from sort of two directions. I chair the Cavehill. We have an agreement with the council to dig and maintain our own trail. So on the dig days, we would take a couple of bags up and we'd fill them up. But also, there's a walking group, the Cavehill Conservation Group, which I'm the treasurer for that group. Now they're kind of more proactive in the gathering trash as well. They would organise regular litter picks. I would get mountain bikers to come along in those litter picks, and the council would supply the wee clamp things in the bags, and they'd organise tea and coffee, at the end of those. And that's basically at the weekends. Then midweek, the council and the conservation group would organise the worker volunteer groups. So basically, like say one of the big 6 accountancy firms, KPMG or Pricewaterhouse or PwC or or one of those groups or whatever, that they'll give their employees the day off to go and participate in voluntary environmental projects. Well, those guys would come along to the litter picks, and we would take them up around Cavehill, and again with other conservation volunteers, and also with the council officials and the park rangers or whatever. So it is pretty active now. I've seen the Trash Free Trails website, and I think I have logged in, or I've kind of I might not be participated much to it, but I think we could maybe, we'll start logging what actually we're doing. But that's the two. There's a mountain bike element, and then there's the conservation walking group element. And I try to kind of pull both groups together. So if we're doing it, we'll be talking about, we'll try and get the conservationists involved, and also the conservationists are doing it. Well, I'll try and get the mountain bikers involved, because any disharmony would tend to be between walkers and mountain bikers. So I'm trying to get them all together and build up like a piece of love of the trails, and get a litter off them. And by and large, it kind of works quite well. There isn't an awful lot of litter on the trails, but it's basically because we're picking it all up, and we're picking it up regularly,
Cool.
I think that kind of cross-pollination of woodland users or user groups is really important. It's really effective to it as well. We've had experience of that, as I've already said. What you tend to find is these people will join your event, complete strangers. They'll go out, they'll pick up trash on a hill for 2-3 hours, and they'll come back and they'll be chatting as fine as ever, just over a cup of coffee and a tea at the end of a piece of cake at the end of it. And it seems to really bring people together, bring a sense of cohesiveness. And particularly, as Joe says, when it comes to kids as well, with kids groups, it's incredible how into picking up trash kids get. They really get invested in it so quickly. We've had an event up in Perth with the Tay Titans, and it was one of these events you turn up to and you look at the coordinator and go, so are we expecting like 10-15 kids? And they go, 90. You're like, oh, okay, cool, 90 kids, that's fine. And you have 90 kids on a hillside for an evening in the summer picking up trash and riding bikes. And it's the process of sorting the trash. So you usually say to them, go away, find the oldest thing you can on the hill, or the weirdest thing you can find on the hill, and bring it back. And there's always one kid that tries to drag a sofa over the hill. But aside from that, they get so engaged in it, and they absolutely love the process. And when they leave absolutely buzzing at the end of the day, you look at that and you go, right, are they less likely to now start littering on their hill when they're on their bikes? Well, the answer is probably yeah, because they've been influenced. There's a positive influence of what they're doing there. So yeah, bringing those different communities together is a brilliant idea to do if you can do that. Absolutely.
We found it pretty particularly useful in relationship building, because a lot of the walking groups, or a lot of walkers, they kind of looked on mountain bikers, they've seen them with a full face helmet, body armor, and big downhill bikes, and they kind of thought of them as RoboCops. And then suddenly, not only in the litter picks, but also we got mountain bikers, we had been involved in the tree planting and various other environmental projects. But then suddenly they got to see a person behind that full face helmet, and that did a tremendous amount about just building up relationships with the walkers. And certainly trail sabotage now is just non-existent, whereas before, now it didn't happen overnight. We had about 4 years of capacity building and relationship building, but those 4 years really paid off dividends, and that now everybody respects that there's it's a multi-use area, and it's paying dividends, but yeah, you're right.
Oh, has anyone got any final questions before I move us on? Okay, well now is the experimental stage of the meeting, which sometimes works, sometimes doesn't, which is about asking each other questions. What has anyone got any questions for the floor? Any burning issues they'd like the advice of other trail associations and other groups on? while you're thinking about that, I'm gonna open it up. So someone asked me recently if I knew anything about trail counters, i.e., how are people actually measuring the traffic of their trails? And I didn't have an answer. So if anyone's got any answers to that, any experience with trail counters, please put your hands up now. Oh, look, Paul's got his hand up. Brilliant.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can, yeah.
So this is to do with the trash again. We, like many other places, I assume, don't have bins, any type of bins at all. It's all, if you bring rubbish with you, can take it back. Are there any places that use bins, and do they bring any benefit? I.e., does it help? Does it just create more rubbish, etc., etc.?
Paul, I think if you don't have bins, that is, it gives people a reason to say, well, there were no bins, so I threw it. And at least if you are offering something, that's like less of a negative reason for people to use. Unfortunately, nobody is perfect. So if you're just relying on people to take all their stuff home, it's not going to happen. But if you give people the opportunity to put their rubbish in a bin, then you might get less left on your trails.
Yeah, I
Or
mean,
just
we
left
were,
on the car parks and things.
because ours is partially council funded, we were told that if we had bins, we'd have to get them properly emptied, which obviously incur costs. And if we're run by a charity, we don't want to incur as many costs as possible, basically. So just wonder if anybody does do it and if it's beneficial or not.
I'd just like to add on to that. I'm thinking back to one of our old that's coming back dirt jump spots that was just, to be honest, over the hill from me. Some of you might know of it, Hendra and the Hush Hush Boys. And I remember from there, well, it's been cut down, deforested now for, I think it was the larch disease. But I can remember there, they had a whole host of sort of different corners. You had jumps, you had corners, everything. And you'd sort of climb through a gap in the wall at the top, and there was a place where it had been fly tipped, and there was baths, there were toilets, there was a whole load of shit, which throughout the sort of years of it being there, that got taken away. But I can remember at the top set of jumps, the first that you'd come to, somebody had, I think, nailed a set of bin bags to a tree. I'm not even sure they were bin bags. They might have been sort of sheep feed bags they'd found round the corner on the road. And anytime you'd go there, that top section that had sort of the bags that were there as designated bins, those bags would be filling up and there wouldn't be much rubbish around because it gave people an option. And granted, the bags sort of stayed there when they were full and another bag would appear. But then when we went and did a litter pick there, we simply just had to pick the bag up and go. Whereas other locations there, sort of, if you went further down the hill where there weren't bin bags stapled to trees, you'd find quite a bit more rubbish, which just sort of shows it doesn't have to be a bin. It just has to be something that people look at and go, oh, there's a load of rubbish here. I can put my rubbish in with it. And then it's almost more of a centralized spot to pick up the rubbish from. And it sort of tidies up the place that there's one tree that's got a load of rubbish with it, but everywhere else is tidy.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, at the Weatherby Bike Park, the council actually provided some bins there. They provided 2 bins, which they now empty on their. They have a little route, a van that goes around emptying all the bins in Weatherby, and that really does seem to help. And then some of the locals, if it overflows, they will pick up the excess and take it home with them because we have regular people who walk past. So that really does seem to keep the place tidy. There's virtually no litter there at all. But it's quite good that the council have opted to do that for us, and they've not actually put a charge on. But they technically they own the little bike park there. It's not very big, but they own it. So I suppose it's in their interest as well to do that. But somewhere like Dolby, it's just too big a site to put bins out. So we tend to just litter pick that when we go past each section. But we do sort of know where the trash areas are. And it would probably benefit. There's a little jump area, Dickson's Hollow, and that is always bad for litter because there's a car park at the side of it. So to me, that would be a place that would be useful to put bins because it's easy to get to for the Forestry Commission. There's a car park there, and that would then be just you could take it down to their centre and put it in the bins there. Hope that helps.
It might, Paul, it might also be worth like just making some posters. Like we've done at Trash Free Trails a 1 bag challenge, and that's actually just, you know, going round and filling up a bag or using any bag that you have on. So, you know, making it a positive experience and just do a poster that calls it the 1 bag challenge. And as people go around, they put the litter in the bag. You don't necessarily then need bins. You can also like use a route map. Kamut's quite good to use because you can take photos at different spots. So walk the bike park, take photos where you see that there's, you know, more trash than other places, to keep in your mind where might be good areas to think, right, I'm gonna put a bin liner on the tree here. I'm gonna put some posters up around here and things like that. Just some like little ideas to support you.
Cool. Anyone got any answers for on the trail cancer thing? Doesn't look like anyone has. Anyone got any questions for each other? Not looking like you do. Oh, look, Jim's just put a nice little thing about trail cancers and Strava Metro. I'll have a look at that later. Thanks, Jim. And then anyone got any questions for me in terms of what's going on with the UK MTB Trail Alliance?
Just, I possibly missed it at the start, but could we have a quick brief overview on what the Trail Alliance sort of is? Because I've only heard about it today.
Okay, sorry, James. Yeah, I've sort of given the same introduction on the last 3 calls, so I sort of decided to skip it today. Yeah, I mean, the idea is we're trying to bring together all of the UK's trail associations and informal trail groups. So, you know, if you think about that spectrum, you've got people at one end of the spectrum like Forest Dean Trail Volunteers or SingletrAction. Jez is here today from SingletrAction, have been around 20 plus years. They're a registered charity. They run regular dig days. They've got loads of volunteers. They've got money in the bank. You know, they're really well organised. They're registered, you know, et cetera, through to the other end of the spectrum where you've got some illegal trails in the woods somewhere and a Facebook group. And actually what you find is actually most people are sort of, they're not at either end of that spectrum. They're somewhere in the middle. You know, they've been around for a while, but they're still not properly constituted. And all the people involved are personally liable if anything goes wrong, or, you know, et cetera. And then on, you know, the other side of things, there's, you know, large swathes of the UK, so, like actually mostly flat parts of England where there aren't many trails in the woods, but there are lots of little bike parks that are sprung up. So again, just trying to bring together, you know, all of the bike parks in the UK. So from those at one end of the spectrum through to the other end of, you know, Bike Park Wales and Revolution at the other. And the idea is really, A, to help us speak with a common voice, to have a more adult conversation with the national landowners, so Forestry England, NRW, Forestry Land Scotland, trying to move the conversation, you know, positively forward, bit by bit, year by year, to just try and improve their attitude to mountain bike trails and the riders that ride them. But then also, you know, actually in the short term, the biggest but hopefully the easiest problem to solve is actually this sort of thing, actually trying to get us all sharing knowledge between each other. And there are different ways of doing that. One, these monthly Zoom calls. We also have a monthly email newsletter that goes out. The idea is in the longer term to have either national conferences or possibly regional conferences. So, you know, we can all get together and share knowledge that way. But also we're about to launch, you know, touch wood within the next month or so, a knowledge sharing platform, so an online forum, so we can all share knowledge electronically that way and get going like that. Is that I think that sort of sums up. Bern or Ian, shout if I've missed anything. So yeah, that's what we're trying to do. And again, we're sort of, yeah, at the moment we haven't publicly launched. The idea is we'll be launching publicly in the next month or two, running a crowdfunding campaign. etc., getting everything going and moving a bit faster than they have so far. But so far we've got over 125 groups, bike parks, informal trail groups, trail associations as members. So we've got pretty good coverage across the whole of the UK already.
Yeah, that sums it up pretty well. It's good to hear that something's sort of being made to bring everybody together, because sort of at the end of the day, we're all aiming for the same thing, to have somewhere to ride our bikes.
Exactly.
And along with the Trail Collective North Wales, which is sort of in the process of getting legitimised and set up, I've noticed there's a lot of problems that Tom's come across, and Cass, the chairperson, where sort of having a group like this where at the end the question can be asked, it's quite nice and easy for sort of an issue that somebody's already solved, not to need solving another 14 times for everywhere else.
Yeah, exactly. The idea is, over time, hopefully we build up a sort of a collection of documents and case studies that, that helps everyone do something that someone else has already done really quickly, rather than reinventing the wheel. Cool. Mike, you've got a question.
Yes, for you, Robin. Just following on from that, have you reached out to the UK Trails Project Management team as part of the MBIS?
Yes, we have. So they actually, that was last month's call. So Dave Evans, the UK Trails Project Manager, actually presented us to us all as a group last month. Okay. So we're in very close contact with them. I think, we both projects sort of started independently of each other and unbeknownst to each other, if that makes sense. But I think, what we're doing is complementary. And hopefully we can amplify each other's efforts rather than duplicate each other's efforts. I think that's certainly the way it feels at the moment. It's an interesting time to be around. I mean, I think they're obviously, they've got all of the national landowners on their steering committee, as well as the national governing bodies, i.e. British Cycling, Scottish Cycling, Welsh Cycling, etc. So they're, as Dimbins has done in Scotland, they're in a much more neutral position, if that makes sense, sort of acting as acting as an independent voice in between, trail associations and mountain bikers at one side and the landowners at the other, whereas we as the UK MTB Trail Alliance are very much trying to represent the interests of mountain bikers and trail associations, and not be neutral in any way.
So would it be advantageous to be part of that committee, or
It certainly would. Yeah, we've made that point several times, and we're working on it.
Cool, thanks.
Cool. Well, look, on that, just going back to what Ali and Tom presented today, and to say thank you to them both for really, really great presentations. Everyone can clap their hands on mute for that. Thank you. But also, hopefully, you're all inspired to run your own trail clean on Earth Day. It'd be really great if all of our members could do at least one trail clean this year, and if they could do it around Earth Day, that'd be amazing. It'd be really good to contribute to the amazing work that Trash Free Trails have done and continue to do in the space. I think it really is to be applauded and to be supported. So hopefully, you can all take part. But on that, I will say good night and thank you all very much. Cheers, guys.